On February 14, 1979, on Valentine's Day, 15-year-old traveler Monique Hoyt opens the car door at a gas station and runs to the nearest phone to call police. She managed to do it. She was the only one who managed to fool a serial killer responsible for about 130 murders. He was arrested right there, but after a while, he was released. Today I'm going to tell you a really creepy story about a crazy predator named Rodney Alcala. Why he was arrested so many times, but released every time. How did the most wanted killer end up on a TV show? And why he was sentenced to death 3 times, but never executed. On September 25, 1968, Rodney Alcala is driving his car through the streets of Los Angeles. On the way, he spots 8-year-old Tali Shapiro walking to school. Alcala stops, introduces himself as a family friend, and offers her a ride. The girl agrees and gets into his car. Officially, Shapiro is considered the first victim of the serial killer, although there are prerequisites in his behavior before that. 4 years ago, he was dismissed from the army, just after being accused of sexual harassment. Now, Alcala is taking the 8-year-old child to his home in a Hollywood apartment. He is followed by eyewitness Donald Heitz. He found it strange that the girl got into the car with a stranger, so he decided to report it to the police. The police officers who arrived at the scene even managed to talk to Rodney Alcala through the door. He is very nervous and says that he has just taken a shower, so he cannot open the door. And while the police are breaking down the door, Alcala manages to escape. In the kitchen, the police find Tali Shapiro badly injured, but alive. After his first attack, Rodney Alcala was placed on the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list. To avoid arrest, he leaves California, changes his name to John Berger, and enters New York University. During this period, Alcala commits another crime. He kills 23-year-old flight attendant Cornelia Criley in her apartment after helping her load furniture. Then, under the same name, John Bergen, he gets a job as a counselor at a children's art camp in New Hampshire. There, he makes an incredible impression on the local children because he always knows how to draw people to him. He smiles a lot and spends a lot of time with the students. But one day, 2 of the students go to the local post office to mail a letter. To their great surprise, they see a photo of their beloved Mr. Berger on the Most Wanted list. 3 years after the attack on Tali Shapiro, the attacker was finally caught. But, in fact, this was not the end, but only the beginning of the story. As it turned out, the police had nothing to charge him with. At that time, he was not connected to the Cornelia Criley case. And there was no key witness in the Shapiro case. Several years ago, Shapiro's parents moved the family to Mexico and did not want their daughter to testify in court. Therefore, the prosecutor's office offers Alcala a deal to plead guilty to a lesser charge of child molestation. He agrees, and the court sentences him to only 3 years in prison. After 34 months, the parole board releases Alcala. In 1976, Rodney Alcala became a free man, and this is when he began a series of murders. The feeling of impunity awakens a real appetite in him. He hunts down his victims like a predator. Presenting himself as a professional photographer, he often convinces people to travel with him to take photos for a competition. For example, in 1977, he travels to New York City, where he asks 23-year-old Ellen Hover, the daughter of the owner of a popular nightclub in Manhattan, to pose for him. Then, he kills her. The FBI gets on Alcala's trail by finding Hoover's diary. There, she wrote about a meeting on the day of her disappearance with a certain John Berger. When the FBI receives information that John Berger and Rodney Alcala are the same person, they immediately detain him. He doesn't deny knowing Hoover, but they can't arrest him either, because her body hadn't been found at the same time. Alcala again escapes punishment and gets a job as a layout designer at the Los Angeles Times. He convinces all his colleagues that he is a professional fashion photographer. He does not hesitate to show photos from his portfolio. Most of these photos have sexual overtones. Even teenagers are in them. In a few years, the FBI will discover thousands of such photos, and it is possible that many of them were potential victims. Rodney Alcala continued his crimes and in 1978 appeared on the popular TV show The Dating Game.
Please welcome Rodney Alcala. Rod, welcome.
He is one of 3 bachelors competing for the attention of Cheryl Bradshaw. On the show, Alcala uses the same tool he uses to lure his victims: his charm. Throughout the episode, Alcala enthusiastically answers all the provocative questions. He compares himself to a banana, says that he feels really good at night, and plays the role of a dirty old man. Although he eventually wins, Cheryl refuses to go out with him, saying that there is something wrong with this guy. And yet, on February 14, 1979, Alcala makes a mistake. His victim, 15-year-old Monique Hoyt, convinces him that she will not tell anyone about the attack and offers to go to his house together. She escapes to a gas station on the way back to Riverside County when Alcala goes to the restroom and calls the police. Monique files a report of the attack, but Alcala's mother posts bail for him, and the serial killer is released for trial in September. During this period, Rodney Alcala commits 2 more murders. One of them is 12-year-old Robin Samso. On June 20, 1979, she and her friend were vacationing on the beach when Alcala approached them and offered to take a picture. At that moment, he was disturbed by his friend's neighbor, who came over to see if the girls were okay. Robin started to pack and took her bike so she wouldn't be late for her ballet class. It was the last time she was seen alive. Robin's friend made a sketch of the stranger, in which the parole officer recognized Rodney Alcala. During a search of his apartment, the police found a receipt for a storage unit in Seattle. In the storage unit, police found Robin Samso's earrings. This time, Alcala had no chance of escaping punishment. In 1980, Rodney Alcala is convicted of the murder of Robin Samso and sentenced to death. But in 1984, the California Supreme Court overturns the verdict because the jury was not informed of his previous crimes. In 1986, Alcala was sentenced to death again, and his sentence was overturned again in 2001. During this time, investigators found evidence of other episodes. And in 2010, 30 years after his arrest, Rodney Alcala appeared in court again. This time, he defends himself. Among the witnesses is Alcala's first victim, Tali Shapiro. In March 2010, Alcala was sentenced to death for the 3rd time. But in 2012, he is extradited to New York on charges of the Criley and Hoover murders, where he pleads guilty to stay in the state. The fact that since 2007, there has been no death penalty in New York State. So, a Manhattan judge sentences Alcala to life in prison. Police released 120 photos of Alcala to help the public identify additional victims. In the first weeks, 21 women came forward to identify themselves. More than 900 photos could not be published due to their explicit sexuality. On July 24, 2021, serial killer Rodney Alcala died of natural causes on death row in California at the age of 77. Although the true number of victims remains unknown, authorities believe that Alcala may have killed 130 people.